So carnivore, keto, what is it? And is it good for you? Let's find out. Hi there, guys. This is Tara from Be Well Healthy Living. Last week, I discussed vegetarianism and veganism, and is it right for everybody? And so today, to be fair, I'm going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm going to discuss carnivore and keto diets, and are they right for everybody? So let's dig in. I'll first start out with explaining what is carnivore and what is keto. They're very similar, but there are slight differences. So keto has been kind of a popular diet. It's been all the rage for quite some time. And a lot of people are having great success on it initially. And eventually, sometimes they go off the diet because it is a little bit constricting, and many people wind up gaining it back unless they're diehards and they've got very good willpower and they stay on it for long periods of time and they've had success. So what keto is more of a fat-centric diet. It is a low-carb diet, so most of the time it's anywhere between 20 and 50 grams of carbs a day, sometimes less, sometimes elimination. And what the trick is that you're basically getting your body to burn fat instead of glucose as an energy source. So when you don't eat carbs, it can't use glucose as an energy source, so therefore it's going to burn fat. And basically that is short. To make it short and simple, it's like you're in ketosis. So when that happens, you're in ketosis, and then you're going to be burning those ketones, and that burns the fat instead of anything else. So when ketones are used for burning the fat, you're going to you're not going to have those blood sugar spikes that you normally used to have. So because you're not relying on before, if you would have like a carbohydrate, most diets before people start these diets are very much using the standard American diet. So the keto diet, you're going to be consuming fats, and you're going to be consuming proteins and some vegetables in moderation. And vegetables, to be fair, have carbohydrates in them. So you're going to be consuming a little bit of different, so you can have a little bit more nuts and nuts and seeds. It's a little bit less restrictive than the full carnivore diet, but I'm going to be getting into that in a minute. So the keto diet still is a high protein, high fat diet and very low carbs. So those 20 to 50 grams of carbs a day, sometimes 50 is even too high for some people. So they try and keep it as low as possible. And a way that a lot of people will measure it is they get those like urine test strips, where you get a little strip and then you put it under your urine, and it'll test the amount of ketones in your body. And then when you're in a certain level, you're considered what's in ketosis. And so when you're in ketosis, that means you're in fat burning mode. And so that means that your body is using fat for energy rather than glucose. And so on the standard American diet, because we are so carb heavy, carb rich on that standard American diet, typically most people burn sugars or burn glucose for energy. And so that, depending on how you're doing it, that basically most often will send people on blood sugar spikes. So they spike their blood sugar, it drops. They spike their blood sugar, it drops. And then it's like people are constantly on the cyclical blood sugar spike and drop. Whereas on keto, the people that go on it, they most of the time will notice success in the fact that they don't have those anymore. So people assume, they're like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And then they have the weight loss to go with it, because again, they're not sending their body with those up and down spikes all the time. So that is keto. And then now protein is allowed, but it's not all protein, because you really want to make sure that you're getting fats. And when I say fats, I'm talking about good fats. The good thing about these diets is that one of the main factors is you're looking at quality of fats and your protein. So it's not just any fat and it's not just any protein, that there is an emphasis on the quality of the fats and the proteins that you're getting. Like, are you getting grass-fed beef? Are you getting the good quality oils like coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, um, grass-fed butter, those good fats versus the negative fats like the cheap canola oils and stuff like that that you really want to avoid. So avocados are really important on the keto diet, and like you'll hear things like fat bombs where people make like little desserts and stuff like that that have no sugar in it, but they're heavy fat, so that way they're getting that fat content to get to stay in ketosis. So it's other part of it is okay, so now going into carnivore is slightly different, similar but slightly different. It's not as much fat centric, although there is that element where you do want to get fat in there, but it's more protein centric. It's more of like more animal based products. So it is like, if you want to look at two polar opposite ends of the spectrum, you have veganism on one end and then you have carnivore on the other, where vegan has zero animal products whatsoever. Carnivore is 100% animal products, and that's about it. Most people, when they're following it to the T, don't allow dairy, don't allow, there's some foods to be eliminated. So mostly it's just like eggs and meats, and that's pretty much it. So those are two different extremes, but they are similar in the fact that they are going to be burning, you're going to be in ketosis, you're going to be burning fat. So a lot of people have really, really quick instant results. Most people lose weight rapidly. Most people actually feel really great in the beginning. Well, I'm going to say great in the beginning, but that's after you go through the keto flu. So as you're transitioning to that ketosis, a lot of people will report the first couple weeks, you're going to feel miserable. It's almost like you've got the flu. It's keto flu as your body transitions from burning glucose to fat. So that's completely normal when you do go from one diet to the other diets. But once you get past that, most people report increased energy. They feel better. They don't have some of the digestive issues. So there are pros, but there are also cons to each of these diets, especially a carnivore, which doesn't allow for any plant-based products. Pretty much your 100% animal-based products, is that there are certain micronutrients that you're going to be lacking in your diet. So certain things like you're going to get your plant-based polyphenols, you're going to have problems with vitamin C, you're going to have problems with magnesium, potassium, certain things like that. Some of that can be alleviated in the carnivore diet because some of it can be alleviated in the carnivore diet if you eat a lot of organ meat. I don't know about you, but I have a really hard time with organ meat. Liver is amazing for you. However, I can't stomach liver no matter what I do. Now, I know there are brands that make capsules that are liver, basically, so you can swallow, so that way you get all the nutrients, but you don't have to taste it. Some people love liver. I'm just one of those people that I can't handle it. My grandmother used to cook it on a daily basis for her dog. She'd cook liver in butter every single day for her dog Twinkie, and it stunk the whole house up. And during those times, it was like I'd run through the house screaming and go outside. So no liver, some of the organ meats are really, really rich in some micronutrients, which can help, but even still, vitamin C is one of those things. And there are certain compounds that you're going to get from plants that are going to be non-existent in the carnivore diet or very difficult to get. It's a little bit easier to get in keto because you do allow some carbohydrates, but that's kind of one of the main concerns that I have with those extreme diets. Another one that I have is that there's zero fiber. So fiber is so important for gut health, for balancing that bacteria, the good stuff in the gut, and for keeping things moving, because we don't want things to sit and rot in our guts. That is like, it leads to a whole host of it's a recipe for disaster when things just sit and rot in your gut, especially like meat products. So having things regularly moving is extremely important. Having regular daily bowel movements is extremely important. So That's another concern, is getting the fiber, nutrient deficiency. Some people, depending on their kidneys, depending on their genetic makeup, may have too much strain on their kidneys. Some people report the bad breath. There's the keto breath is kind of, bad. Brain function. Now, a lot of times people on keto are getting MCT oil, so that does help brain function there. However, brain, sometimes operates off of glucose, so that one is a little bit iffy for me still, if the brain function is going to be better or worse on these diets. But it can, I find that there may be a little bit of I don't want to say irritability, but sometimes where the balancing, it's like you don't feel as balanced. So sometimes there's you can get a little bit of irritation, and it can be a little bit weird. But anyway, so side effects. Another thing that I have an issue with keto and carnivore is its sustainability. So yeah, it's easy to kind of do these crash diets for certain periods of time, but long term, is it easy to maintain? And that is one of my biggest goals as a health coach, is this something that you can maintain beyond weight loss mode? So is this something that works with your everyday lifestyle? And so extreme diets you can have a difficult time if you're being invited out with friends, if you're going certain places, if you have friends or family that are inviting you over for dinner. So I have a hard time with the flexibility of these extreme diets, and people who have been on these diets for years probably are going to say, oh, it's no big deal, I just have a hamburger without the bun, or blah blah blah, or whatever. But the thing is that over long periods of time, it can be socially constraining to deal with it. And so and a lot of people, some people say that they have reported where their cravings are reduced. However, behavior changes are often psychological. Now, when we match our body, the nutrition that's in our body, sometimes if we're fully balanced in our body, we do lose cravings because we're not trying to get that anymore because we're balanced. So bringing body into balance is key to stopping to helping with behavior changes, because if your behavior, let's say, if you are balanced on the inside, your body's going to say, okay, I'm satisfied, and you're going to have less cravings. So there's that element. But the other element, and as much as we want to try and ignore it, it's a brain game. It is all mental. Because if you're going out with your friends and you see your friends eating things that you used to enjoy, it's going to wear on you mentally. So my goal as the health coach is to have long-term behavioral changes. So it's about changing your way of life. It's about bringing balance into all parts of your life. And so anything that's on the extreme ends can be very difficult to bring into balance. Now, some people can do it. Some people, it takes a lot of willpower, and that's fine. If it works for you and you have those willpower things and you don't feel deprived in any way, that's fine. I'm not going to say stop what you're doing. However, as a health coach, my philosophy is to bring balance in everything. So most of the people, I believe, have success on these diets because they are coming off the standard American diet. So no matter what you do coming off the standard American diet, you will automatically feel better, because the standard American diet is basically, again, that cycle of ups and downs, those glucose spikes and then crashes, and spike and then crash, and spike and crash. That is the standard American diet. So the good thing about these particular diets is it gets people off of that roller coaster, and that's why no matter what you're doing, when you get off that roller coaster, you're gonna feel a million times better. But what if I could tell you that you could get off of that roller coaster and still eat carbohydrates, and you can still get those nutrients from carbs? The trick is the timing of your carbs, and the quality of your carbs and what you're getting. Because most often on the standard American diet, people are getting those empty carbohydrates that are full of sugar. Now we're talking processed foods in the middle of the grocery store. If you read the box, it has high fructose corn syrup, it has sugar, it has evaporated cane juice, it has fructose, it has sucrose, it has all these, there's like a million different names for sugar, and it's all hidden in these boxed packaged products that are in the middle of the grocery store. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some products that are good. Like if you pick up a bag of quinoa that's in the middle of the grocery store and you read the back, most of the time it's just got one item in it. The less ingredients in there, the better. So learning how to choose those carbohydrates is key. And most people don't have that eye for it because we're not trained to do it. We're not told how to do it. We're not taught it in school. It's not a thing where people are aware of how much garbage is in our food. So people have been consuming these sugar-laden foods, not to mention the glyphosate. Now, I mentioned this in my last video, I believe, about glyphosate being in carbohydrates. So glyphosate is an herbicide that is sprayed onto most oftentimes wheat and oats and almonds and all kinds of foods that this glyphosate is sprayed on. And the majority of those foods are those carbohydrate staples. And it's an herbicide to help kill the weeds and the pests and everything. And so in that process that stuff is being sprayed on. It's a poison that's being sprayed on, and a lot of times it's being sprayed on towards the end of the cycle, towards harvest, and so therefore it is staying on the foods that we're eating. So those GMO crops, again, those genetically modified crops, were designed to withstand the glyphosate spraying. So not only it's a double insult there. So not only are we getting that toxic poison of the glyphosate, we're also getting genetically modified foods. So foods that aren't even what our ancestors ate. It's been completely changed to withstand those toxic chemicals. So we have foods that are poisoning us, that are in almost everything in the middle of the grocery store. And so therefore, of course, we're going to have adverse reactions. No matter what we do, we're being slowly poisoned to death. So we're being poisoned to the point where we're having all these mysterious illnesses. People are getting sick. People are getting cancer. There's all kinds of mysterious illnesses that doctors can't pinpoint. So what's the solution, right? Oh, here's a drug. And that's always the solution is, oh, here's a drug for this, here's a drug for that. Oh, but then that's going to give you that kind of side effect, so let me give you this drug for that side effect. Well, bringing it back to your diet, when you get yourself off of those glyphosate-rich foods, those foods that are just saturated in glyphosate, get away from all those sugar-laden foods, and you start consuming real whole foods, of course you're going to feel better. So that's, I believe, why a lot of people are having so much success and they feel better on the keto and carnivore, is not necessarily because they're eliminating carbohydrates altogether, although that is part of it, but it is also because they're eliminating those toxins from their diet. So searching for good carbohydrates is key. Timing of your carbohydrates is key. So, for example, we're told, and I'm going to go into another video in the future about carbohydrates, about timing of carbohydrates, but I will tell you this. You can have carbohydrates, but I would prefer them to be later in the day, not in the morning. Because when you have them in the morning, you're setting off that reaction, the way your body digests it. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the way your body processes it. So the later in the day you can have your carbs. I know that's going against everything you've probably heard, but I personally prefer carbohydrates later in the day because you'll sleep better. Which that's for another video I'm going to talk about. But choosing carbohydrates that have high fiber, high protein content, and there are those out there. making sure you get good, rich, when I say fruit, I'm not talking about bananas. I mean, we all love bananas. They taste amazing. I mean, some people don't like bananas, but most of the time, bananas are great, but they're very high sugar content. They're very sweet. So there are times and places for bananas. The morning is definitely not that. And if you're trying to correct and fix that metabolic disorder of those spikes, I would temporarily, not always, just temporarily eliminate bananas from your diet, but focus on fruits like blueberries. Again, that purple, you want that deep blue. Those are antioxidant rich foods that are going to be healthy for you, that they're going to give you lots of micronutrients and antioxidants, which are great. So those are good types of fruits that you can eat. Anything that has got that rich red color or blue color, amazing. If you're going to eat a potato, a purple potato, red potato, leave that skin on. The more color rich you can have, the better. Of course, there's, your greens, like spinach is another superfood. You could have green. Now, kale is another interesting thing, because a lot of people think, oh, kale is a good thing for you. But kale it's difficult to eat because it just doesn't taste that great. And sometimes if you're forcing yourself to eat it just because you think it's good for you, it's not gonna work. But stick with like the blueberries, the reds, the blues. Grains, if you're looking for grains, make sure they are the organic, because organic means that they do not have the glyphosate, because if it has that organic label, it cannot have glyphosate. Now, most of the time, those are going to be GMO free. They're not going to be GMOs either. So I would recommend looking for, like, a lot of times those ancient grains. Black rice is a really good one. Again, that's got that rich, deep color with those full antioxidants. It's got fiber. It's got protein. Farro has protein and fiber. Quinoa is another amazing one. So there's lots of really good ancient grains that are going to be balanced, that are going to give that to you with a much lower. It's not going to spike you the way a bagel would, for example, which is pure white flour, and there's a million added things in there. So choosing carbohydrates, you can eat carbohydrates and be healthy and balanced, but again, it's pulling it back and bringing us away from the standard American diet, getting carbohydrates that are high fiber, high protein, and avoiding conventionally grown of foods, because those conventionally grown foods are going to be genetically modified, rich and full of glyphosate. Those are both toxic things that we want to avoid. So again, every diet has to be tailored to you, and that's what's really important. Is I have my preferences, and my personal philosophy as a health and wellness coach is I'm going to say balance, because it's also a mind game. So that's why I like balance, is because it helps control your mind. It helps make you never feel deprived, like you're not eliminating any particular food group. So it's easier to get balanced that way. And if something is working for you and you're having great success, by all means, I'm not going to tell you to get off of it. However, I will say a few things that you want to watch out for are your micronutrient deficiencies. That's all your vitamins, your minerals, and your plant-based compounds. You're going to take a look and examine. Are you really having good bowel movements? Are you really moving regularly? So that's another thing. And a lot of other things like your health, your kidneys. How do you feel with your kidneys? There's just, I have concerns about those extreme diets long term. So, but again, you have to do what's best for you. And if it's working, then great. But again, I personally think that most people are having such success and feeling so good because it's getting people to focus and get off the standard American diet. And that's the one thing that we all should be doing, is educating ourselves and becoming aware of all the propaganda, all the advertisements, all the false studies that were put on by these big manufacturers, food manufacturers, that prove that their product is okay. So again, it's about maintaining and not having those blood sugar spikes. So I hope that this video was helpful. And it's kind of like a bookend to my video last week with vegetarianism. I'm not trying to single anybody out, but I see a lot of aggression one way or the other, where people are trying to say this diet is the way that everybody should eat because our ancestors ate that way. I hear it on both sides. I hear it on both sides, that we should be eating a certain way because that's the way our ancestors were. Personally, I think that metabolic flexibility is the key, because if you think about our ancestors, yes, they did eat meat. They were hunters, but they were gatherers, right? The whole hunter-gatherer thing. But if there was a day that they didn't eat meat, they didn't get that kill, they weren't able to get anything, yes, they could fast. So they had the ability to fast, but they also did have the ability to flex and to eat certain foods, like plants. So the human body is so amazingly made that we can go back and forth between what we burn for energy, whether we burn the fat, the ketones, or we burn the glucose. And so we can kind of weave in and out of that. And so having that metabolic flexibility is that's when it's so powerful, when we can go back and forth between it. Like if we're not going to eat any plant-based and we're only going to eat meat, and it's like, yeah, okay, we can go with that, but then we can also flex into this way without getting those hypoglycemic drops every time because we're on that roller coaster. So I like metabolic flexibility. I think it's really important. I think there's a lot of good points that people are aware of. Again, that's quality of meats too, the quality of your animal-based product, cruelty-free, but also grass-fed, pasture-raised, looking for the right types of meats and animal-based products, I think is a big win coming out of the carnivore and keto movement. And so there are some good points. But anyway, that's about it. I hope I didn't single anybody out. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I'm just throwing it all out there to discuss it. And so that's about all for now. And blessings, good health, and have a great day. Bye-bye.